Continuing debate, the honourable member for Mont-Royal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I will be sharing my time with the member for Winnipeg South Centre. Mr. Speaker, let's start by asking ourselves, why are we here tonight? We're here tonight because a terrorist organization that has in its charter the destruction of the State of Israel and the destruction of the Jewish people launched the worst attack against Jews since the Holocaust. They crossed the border into Israel. They slaughtered babies. They slaughtered women in their 90s who were Holocaust survivors. They took men, women, and children, huddled together in bomb shelters in kibbutzes, and slaughtered them brutally and put it on video. They went to a music festival where young people were having fun and slaughtered them all. Amongst those who were slaughtered, amongst the 1,400 plus who were slaughtered, this is the number that we know right now, were 6 Canadians: Alexandra Luck, Ben Mizrahi, Adi Vital Kaploon, Shira Hanek Georgi, Neda Epstein, and I just, Mr. Speaker, have learned from the family of Tiferet Lapidot that she was also slaughtered and they found her body. So 7 Canadians have been slaughtered. Mr. Speaker, I've been speaking to the families of those people, and it's devastating for them. This is something that has been impressed on the Jewish community for a very long time. The feeling that in the world today, we're very isolated. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, people are worried, and this has exacerbated the situation. Israelis never thought this could happen. They thought their intelligence was better than this. And Jewish Canadians are left shocked, vulnerable, apprehensive, afraid, angry. And that, Mr. Speaker, is where we are today. Israel, as a nation, has the right to defend itself within international law. We talk about the Holocaust, and the difference between today and the Holocaust is in the Holocaust, we had no army for the Jews. We had nobody to stand up for us. Now we have a state that is a democratic state that has an army that can defend itself and can defend the Jewish people. And that army has a right to eradicate a terrorist organization that not only has wreaked misery for Israeli families, but for Palestinian families as well. Hamas uses their population as human shields. We need to make sure, absolutely, that in Gaza there's a humanitarian corridor. We need to make sure, and Israel has historically had the IDF make sure that they don't attack civilians. We need to make sure that civilians are protected as best as possible, that humanitarian aid reaches Gaza, that there's a safe zone in the south. All of these things are important. But Israel has the right and the duty to defend itself. And that, I think, is important. I want to turn to something that hasn't come up as much as it probably should, which is in Canada, there are 2 communities right now that are very vulnerable and nervous: the Jewish community and the Muslim community. And of course, all those people who identify as Palestinians, whatever their religion, feel very vulnerable. Jews are not responsible in Canada for the actions of the State of Israel, and Palestinians are not responsible for the actions of Hamas. These 2 populations in Canada have historically gotten along very well and been allies. And we as parliamentarians have a duty, nous avons tous un devoir d'assurer qu'au Canada, nous n'avons pas les mêmes batailles que nous avons au Moyen-Orient, que toutes les communautés peuvent s'entendre ici au Canada, que nous, comme parlementaires, offrons tous nos soutiens dans nos comtés à nos populations qui se sentent très vulnérables aujourd'hui, en particulier les jeunes et les écoles, les étudiants et les universités. Ça, c'est primordial. And we as politicians have to set an example for everyone. We need to be seen whether we agree or not, talking to one another, sharing our concerns in a civil way, because that is the way we set an example for future generations and set an example for other countries around the world. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Bravo. Questions and comments, questions et commentaires, the honourable member for Sherwood Park, Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask my honourable friend about his views on the Iranian regime's role behind this attack. It's clear, I think, that the Iranian regime is seeking to support terrorist organizations throughout the region. We see, if you just look at Israel's borders, you see Iranian regime engagement with Hamas, with Hezbollah, and with the Assad regime in Syria. We have called for the government to take additional steps to hold the Iranian regime accountable, listing the IRGC as a terrorist organization, for example, and taking additional steps in terms of sanctions. And I think this attack is another data point in terms of the horrors we've seen over the years in terms of the actions of this regime. I wonder if the member could share what his views are on listing the IRGC, on the role of Iran in this particular attack, and on what Canada can do to hold the Iranian regime accountable.
I want to thank my honourable colleague for that very important question. Iran is definitely responsible for Hamas having the resources it had to carry out these terrorist attacks. Whether or not Iran was actually involved in plotting these attacks, we don't know yet. I imagine we will at some future date. But what we do know is that Iran is actively involved with Hezbollah and may well try to get them to create a second front in Lebanon. We need to make sure, along with our allies, that Iran does not further exacerbate tension in the region. And of course, I have voted in this House to designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization, and I certainly continue to support that vote that I had made several years ago.